Stoicism and God. What the ancient philosophers really believed. Stoicism, a philosophy born in ancient Greece and flourishing in the Roman Empire, offers a compelling framework for navigating life's challenges and cultivating inner peace. However, a question that often arises for those exploring Stoicism is, does Stoicism believe in God? This seemingly straightforward inquiry opens the door to a complex and nuanced understanding of the Stoic worldview, revealing a conception of the divine that differs significantly from many contemporary religious beliefs. While a simple yes might suffice for a quick answer, it demands immediate qualification. The Stoic understanding of God, or the divine principle, is not aligned with the transcendent, revelatory God of Abrahamic faiths or the often capricious deities of traditional Greek and Roman polytheism. Instead, Stoicism embraces a unique concept, the God of the philosophers, a rational, immanent, and all-pervading force that shapes and governs the universe. Furthermore, the landscape of modern Stoicism introduces even more diversity, with perspectives ranging from atheism to theistic interpretations rooted in various religious traditions. This essay will delve into the Stoic conception of God, exploring its historical roots in ancient Stoicism and examining the spectrum of beliefs within contemporary Stoic thought. We will unpack the differences between the Stoic God and other religious conceptions, highlighting the role of reason, nature, and virtue in the Stoic path to wisdom. Through a combination of original analysis and insights drawn from key Stoic texts, this exploration aims to provide a comprehensive understanding of the divine within the framework of Stoicism, both ancient and modern. The ancient Stoic God, immanence, reason, and cosmic order. To grasp the Stoic understanding of God, it is crucial to understand its core tenets, particularly its emphasis on nature, reason, and virtue. For the Stoics, the universe is not a chaotic or arbitrary place. Instead, it is a perfectly ordered and rational system governed by natural law. This natural law, often referred to as logos, is the divine principle that permeates all things, guiding their development and ensuring the harmony of the cosmos. This logos is not a separate entity standing outside of creation, but is inherent within it, making the Stoic God immanent rather than transcendent. This immanence is a key distinction between Stoicism and many theistic religions. In Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, God is typically conceived as being above or beyond the world, a creator who is distinct from his creation. He may intervene in the world through miracles or revelations, but his primary residence is in a transcendent realm. The Stoic God, on the other hand, is not separate from the world, but is the very principle that animates and sustains it. He is the cosmic intelligence that orchestrates the movements of the stars, the cycles of the seasons, and the growth of living beings. This immanent God is not a personal God in the traditional sense. The Stoics did not typically envision God as a being with human-like attributes, such as emotions, desires, or a personal history. Instead, they understood God as a rational principle, an impersonal force that governs the universe according to its own inherent logic. This doesn't mean that the Stoics denied the existence of individual gods or deities. In fact, they often referred to Zeus as the supreme god and acknowledged the existence of lesser gods or daimons, who played a role in the governance of the world. However, these deities were not seen as independent beings with their own agendas, but rather as manifestations of the underlying logos, serving as intermediaries between the divine principle and the world of human affairs. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, frequently referred to the divine in his meditations. He encourages readers to accept whatever fate brings, understanding that everything happens according to the logos. He writes, "Everything harmonizes with me, which is harmonious to thee, O universe. Nothing is too early nor too late for me, which is in due time for thee. Everything is fruit to me, which thy seasons bring, O nature. From thee are all things, in thee are all things, to thee all things return." This passage exemplifies the Stoic understanding of God as the underlying principle of the universe, a principle that is both rational and benevolent. Seneca, another prominent Stoic philosopher, also emphasizes the immanence of God in his letters. He argues that God is not far away, but is present within each of us. He writes, "God is near you, is with you, is inside you. This is what I mean, Lucilius. A Holy Spirit resides within us, the observer and guardian of our good and bad deeds." This passage suggests that the divine is not merely an abstract principle, but is also a force that can be experienced directly through introspection and self-awareness. Epictetus, whose teachings were compiled in the Enchiridion and Discourses, often used the analogy of a city to describe the universe. He argued that just as a well-ordered city has laws and regulations, so too does the universe operate according to a rational plan. He saw human beings as citizens of this cosmic city, with a duty to live in accordance with its laws. For Epictetus, this meant living virtuously, using reason to guide our actions, and accepting whatever fate brings with equanimity. The Stoic emphasis on reason is also central to their understanding of God. Unlike many religious traditions that rely on revelation or faith, Stoicism emphasizes the power of human reason to understand the nature of the universe and our place within it. The Stoics believe that by using our reason, we can discover the logos that governs all things and learn to live in accordance with it. This does not mean that the Stoics rejected the possibility of divine revelation altogether. Some Stoics, like Cicero, discussed divination and oracles, but they generally viewed these practices with skepticism. They believed that the best way to understand the divine was through the careful observation of nature and the application of reason. Furthermore, the Stoic conception of God is inextricably linked to their ethical philosophy. The Stoics believe that the ultimate goal of human life is to live in accordance with nature, which means living virtuously. Virtue, for the Stoics, is not simply a matter of following a set of rules or commandments, but of cultivating inner excellence. It involves developing qualities such as wisdom, justice, courage, and temperance, and using these qualities to guide our actions in all situations. By living virtuously, we align ourselves with the logos and participate in the cosmic order. This connection between virtue and the divine is evident in the Stoic concept of oikeiosis, which refers to the process by which we come to understand ourselves as part of a larger whole. According to the Stoics, we are born with a natural inclination to care for ourselves and our immediate family. However, as we mature, we gradually expand our circle of concern to include our community, our nation, and ultimately, all of humanity. This expansion of concern is seen as a natural expression of our inherent rationality and our connection to the divine. By recognizing our kinship with all living beings, we can learn to act in ways that promote the well-being of the entire cosmos. In summary, the ancient Stoic conception of God is characterized by immanence, reason, and a deep connection to the natural world. The Stoic God is not a transcendent being who intervenes in human affairs, but rather the rational principle that governs the universe from within. By using our reason to understand the logos and living virtuously in accordance with nature, we can align ourselves with the divine and find our place within the cosmic order. Differentiating the Stoic God from other conceptions. Having explored the essence of the Stoic God, it's essential to highlight the critical differences between this concept and other prominent religious views. As mentioned earlier, the Stoic God diverges significantly from the transcendent God found in Abrahamic faiths. While Judaism, Christianity, and Islam posit a God who exists outside the universe, actively creates, intervenes, and judges, the Stoic God is interwoven with the very fabric of existence, operating through natural law and inherent reason. Furthermore, the Stoic perspective contrasts sharply with the polytheistic landscape of ancient Greek and Roman religion. The traditional pantheon, populated by gods with distinct personalities, flaws, and often conflicting agendas, presented a stark contrast to the Stoic ideal of a unified, rational divine principle. While the Stoics did not outright deny the existence of these traditional deities, they often reinterpreted them as allegorical representations of different aspects of the logos. For instance, Zeus, the king of the gods, was often equated with the divine reason that governs the universe. This allegorical approach allowed the Stoics to reconcile their philosophical beliefs with the prevailing religious practices of their time. They could participate in public rituals and honor the traditional gods without necessarily accepting the literal interpretations of the myths and legends. This approach is exemplified by Seneca, who, while acknowledging the existence of temples and sacrifices, emphasized the importance of inner piety and virtuous conduct as the true form of worship. The emphasis on reason and virtue as the path to understanding the divine also sets Stoicism apart from many mystical or devotional religious traditions. While mystical traditions often emphasize direct experience of the divine through meditation, prayer, or other spiritual practices, Stoicism emphasizes the importance of intellectual understanding and moral development. Similarly, devotional traditions often emphasize the importance of faith and obedience to divine commands. Stoicism emphasizes the importance of rational self-governance and the cultivation of inner excellence. Pascal's distinction between the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and the God of the philosophers neatly encapsulates this difference. The former represents a personal, relational God who reveals himself through scripture and tradition, while the latter represents a God who is discovered through reason and philosophical inquiry. The Stoic God clearly falls into the latter category, a God who is known through understanding the natural order and living in accordance with its principles. Another important distinction lies in the Stoic view of divine power. While many religious traditions attribute omnipotence to God, the Stoics held a more nuanced view. As exemplified by Epictetus's commentary on the imperfections of the human body, the Stoics acknowledged limitations in the divine power to create perfection. They argued that God, even with his immense power, was still constrained by the laws of nature and the inherent limitations of matter. This view suggests that the Stoic God is not an all-powerful dictator who can arbitrarily change the course of events, but rather a wise and benevolent governor who works within the constraints of the natural world to bring about the best possible outcome. Finally, the Stoic concept of God differs from many contemporary New Age or spiritualistic beliefs. While some New Age beliefs may emphasize the interconnectedness of all things and the presence of a divine energy within the universe, they often lack the rigorous philosophical framework and ethical emphasis that characterize Stoicism. Stoicism is not simply about feeling good or connecting with the universe, but about developing a rational understanding of the world and living virtuously in accordance with that understanding. In conclusion, the Stoic concept of God is distinct from many other religious conceptions. It is not a transcendent creator, a capricious deity, or an all-powerful dictator. Instead, it is a rational principle that governs the universe from within, a principle that can be understood through reason and embodied through virtuous conduct. By understanding these distinctions, we can better appreciate the unique and compelling nature of the Stoic worldview. Modern Stoicism, a spectrum of beliefs. While ancient Stoicism offers a fairly consistent perspective on the divine, modern Stoicism presents a more diverse landscape of beliefs. As the Stoic philosophy has been revived and reinterpreted in contemporary times, individuals from various backgrounds and belief systems have been drawn to its principles. This has led to a wide range of interpretations regarding the role of God, or the divine, in modern Stoic practice. At one end of the spectrum are atheistic Stoics who reject the concept of God altogether. They view Stoicism as a purely ethical and practical philosophy, focused on cultivating virtue, managing emotions, and living a meaningful life, without any need for religious or spiritual beliefs. For these Stoics, the ancient Stoic God was simply a product of its time, a way of conceptualizing the universe that is no longer relevant in a modern era. They may admire the Stoic emphasis on reason and natural law, but they interpret these concepts in a purely secular way. These atheistic Stoics often emphasize the importance of scientific understanding and critical thinking. They may draw inspiration from the Stoic emphasis on living in accordance with nature, but they interpret this as living in accordance with the laws of physics and biology, rather than in accordance with a divine plan. They may also find value in the Stoic emphasis on virtue, but they see virtue as a matter of personal ethics and social responsibility, rather than as a way of pleasing God. On the other end of the spectrum are theistic Stoics, who integrate their Stoic practice with their existing religious beliefs. These Stoics may be Jewish, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, or belong to other religious traditions. They see Stoicism as a complementary philosophy that can enhance their faith and help them live a more virtuous and fulfilling life. For example, a Christian Stoic might find resonance between the Stoic emphasis on virtue and the Christian teachings on love, compassion, and forgiveness. They might also see the Stoic emphasis on accepting what we cannot control as being consistent with the Christian belief in divine providence. Theistic Stoics often reinterpret the ancient Stoic God in light of their own religious beliefs. They may see the logos as being synonymous with God's word or divine will. They may also see the Stoic emphasis on living in accordance with nature as being consistent with the idea of living in harmony with God's creation. However, it is important to note that theistic Stoics typically do not abandon the core tenets of their original faith in favor of Stoicism. Instead, they seek to find common ground and integrate the two systems in a way that is meaningful and coherent for them. Between these two extremes lies a range of agnostic or spiritual but not religious Stoics. These individuals may not have a clear or defined belief in God, but they may still feel a sense of connection to something larger than themselves. They may find value in the Stoic emphasis on nature, reason, and virtue, but they may not necessarily interpret these concepts in a religious way. They may also be open to the possibility of a divine presence in the universe, but they may not feel the need to define or categorize it. These agnostic Stoics often emphasize the importance of personal experience and intuition. They may engage in practices such as meditation or mindfulness to cultivate a sense of inner peace and connection to the present moment. They may also find inspiration in the beauty and wonder of the natural world. While they may not adhere to a specific religious doctrine, they may still find meaning and purpose in their Stoic practice by focusing on living virtuously and contributing to the well-being of others. Finally, there are some individuals who identify as traditional Stoics and attempt to adhere as closely as possible to the beliefs and practices of the ancient Stoics. These individuals may accept the Stoic conception of God as Zeus, the Logos, and Providence, and may attempt to incorporate these beliefs into their daily lives. However, even within this group, there can be a range of interpretations and practices. Some traditional Stoics may focus on studying the ancient texts and attempting to reconstruct the original Stoic worldview, while others may focus on applying the principles of Stoicism to contemporary issues. The diversity of beliefs within modern Stoicism reflects the fact that Stoicism is not a religion, but a philosophy. It is a system of thought that can be adapted and interpreted in different ways to suit the needs and beliefs of individuals from various backgrounds. While the ancient Stoics had a specific conception of God, modern Stoics are free to interpret this concept in their own way or to reject it altogether. What unites all Stoics, regardless of their religious beliefs, is a commitment to living virtuously, managing their emotions, and accepting what they cannot control. Syncretism and potential conflicts. The integration of Stoicism with existing religious beliefs, a process known as syncretism, can be a fruitful endeavor, enriching both the Stoic practice and the individual's faith. However, it's crucial to acknowledge potential areas of conflict between Stoic principles and certain religious doctrines. For instance, the Stoic emphasis on self-reliance and rational autonomy might clash with religious teachings that emphasize submission to divine will or reliance on divine grace. While Stoicism encourages individuals to take responsibility for their actions and cultivate inner virtue, some religious traditions may emphasize the importance of humility and dependence on God's mercy. Navigating this tension requires careful consideration and a willingness to reconcile potentially conflicting perspectives. Another area of potential conflict lies in the Stoic view of emotions. While Stoicism advocates for managing and regulating emotions, some religious traditions may emphasize the importance of expressing emotions, particularly in the context of worship or prayer. For example, certain Christian denominations may encourage emotional expressions of faith, such as weeping or shouting during religious services. A Stoic who is also a member of such a denomination may need to find a way to balance the Stoic emphasis on emotional control with a religious emphasis on emotional expression. Furthermore, the Stoic emphasis on accepting what we cannot control might conflict with religious beliefs that emphasize the power of prayer or divine intervention. While Stoicism encourages us to focus on what is within our control and to accept what is not, some religious traditions may encourage us to pray for specific outcomes or to believe that God can intervene in the world to change the course of events. A Stoic who also holds such beliefs may need to find a way to reconcile the Stoic emphasis on acceptance with the religious emphasis on prayer and faith. These potential conflicts do not necessarily negate the possibility of integrating Stoicism with religious beliefs. However, they highlight the importance of critical thinking and careful discernment. Individuals who seek to integrate Stoicism with their faith should be aware of these potential conflicts and be prepared to address them in a thoughtful and nuanced way. Ultimately, the success of syncretism depends on the individual's ability to find common ground and to reconcile potentially conflicting perspectives. It requires a willingness to learn from both Stoicism and one's religious tradition, and to develop a personal philosophy that is both meaningful and coherent. The value of allegory and interpretation. One approach to navigating the complexities of Stoicism and religious belief is through allegory and interpretation. As mentioned earlier, the ancient Stoics themselves often reinterpreted traditional myths and deities as allegorical representations of philosophical principles. This approach allows individuals to find deeper meaning in traditional stories and symbols, while also maintaining a rational and critical perspective. For example, a Stoic might interpret the story of Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods to give to humanity, as an allegory for the power of reason and knowledge. Prometheus's act of defiance could be seen as a symbol of the human capacity to challenge authority and to pursue truth, even in the face of adversity. Similarly, a Stoic might interpret the story of Sisyphus, who was condemned to eternally roll a boulder up a hill, as an allegory for the human condition. Sisyphus's endless task could be seen as a symbol of the meaninglessness and frustration that can arise from pursuing external goals without inner purpose. By interpreting traditional stories and symbols in this way, Stoics can find new meaning and relevance in them. They can also use these stories to illustrate and reinforce Stoic principles. For example, the story of Prometheus could be used to illustrate the Stoic emphasis on reason and knowledge, while the story of Sisyphus could be used to illustrate the Stoic emphasis on focusing on what is within our control and finding meaning in the present moment. Allegory can also be used to reinterpret the Stoic conception of God in light of contemporary beliefs. For example, a modern Stoic might interpret the Logos as being synonymous with the laws of nature or with the underlying principles of the universe. They might also see the Stoic emphasis on living in accordance with nature as being consistent with the idea of living in harmony with the environment. By interpreting the Stoic conception of God in this way, modern Stoics can make it more relevant and meaningful for themselves. They can also use it to connect with other people who share their beliefs. For example, a Stoic who interprets the Logos as being synonymous with the laws of nature might find common ground with scientists or environmentalists. Ultimately, the value of allegory and interpretation lies in their ability to bridge the gap between ancient wisdom and contemporary beliefs. By reinterpreting traditional stories and symbols in a meaningful way, individuals can find new insights and inspiration for their own lives. They can also use these interpretations to connect with others and to build a more just and sustainable world. In conclusion, the relationship between Stoicism and the divine is complex and multifaceted. Here are some key takeaways. Ancient Stoicism embraced a unique conception of God. The Stoic God is not a transcendent creator or a capricious deity, but an immanent, rational principle, logos, that governs the universe from within. The Stoic God is knowable through reason and virtue. By cultivating inner excellence and understanding the natural order, we can align ourselves with the divine and find our place within the cosmos. Modern Stoicism presents a spectrum of beliefs, from atheism to theism. Modern Stoics hold diverse views on the role of God in their practice, reflecting the adaptability of Stoicism as a philosophy. Syncretism can be enriching, but requires careful consideration. Integrating Stoicism with existing religious beliefs can be fruitful, but it's important to acknowledge potential conflicts and reconcile differing perspectives. Allegory and interpretation offer valuable tools. Reinterpreting traditional stories and symbols can bridge the gap between ancient wisdom and contemporary beliefs, allowing individuals to find deeper meaning and relevance in their Stoic practice. The question of whether Stoicism believes in God ultimately depends on how one defines God. If God is understood as a transcendent, personal being who intervenes in human affairs, then the answer is likely no. However, if God is understood as the rational principle that governs the universe, then the answer is yes. Regardless of one's personal beliefs, the Stoic emphasis on reason, virtue, and acceptance offers a valuable framework for navigating life challenges and cultivating inner peace. To delve deeper into the Stoic understanding of the divine, consider exploring the following resources. Cicero's De Natura Deorum, on the nature of the gods, a dialogue presenting various philosophical perspectives on the nature of the gods, including the Stoic view. Seneca's Letters from a Stoic offers insights into Seneca's personal philosophy and his understanding of the divine. Epictetus's Enchiridion and Discourses provides practical guidance on living a virtuous life in accordance with Stoic principles. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, a collection of personal reflections on Stoic philosophy and the nature of the universe. By engaging with these texts and reflecting on the principles they espouse, you can develop a deeper understanding of the Stoic perspective on the divine and its implications for your own life. Remember, Stoicism is not a rigid dogma, but a flexible framework for living a more meaningful and fulfilling life. Embrace the freedom to explore, question, and adapt its principles to your own unique circumstances and beliefs. This exploration into the relationship between Stoicism and the divine reveals a philosophy that is both ancient and timeless, offering a path to wisdom and tranquility that resonates with individuals from all walks of life. Whether you embrace the Stoic God as the logos, integrate Stoicism with your existing faith, or find meaning in a purely secular interpretation, the core principles of virtue, reason, and acceptance remain invaluable guides on the journey to a more fulfilling existence.